December 12th Committee of the Whole will come to order. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Present.
Mr. Stuchel?
Present.
Mr. Edwards?
Present.
Ms. Hausfeld? Here. Mr. Schulmeyer is absent. Mr. Culbertson?
Present.
And Mr. Estep is absent.
Let the record show that 5 members are present, 2 members are absent. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the written minutes of the November 21st council meeting? Let's put it this way. Do I have a motion to approve the written minutes of the November 21st council meeting?
Mr. President,
Mr. Morton.
I would like to motion to approve the minutes of the November 21st council meeting.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Morton, seconded by Mr. Culbertson to approve the written minutes of the November 21st council meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Next thing on the agenda, it was asked at the council meeting to discuss the 2025 trash ordinance. Doesn't look like anybody's here. Any comments from council on it?
No.
All right. If not, it'll get its second and possibly third reading then at the next council meeting, which is next week. All right, then we'll move to reports of administrative officials. Mayor Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for making the Village Holiday event a huge success. Thank you for all of those who attended. We couldn't have had a better evening with Santa and Mrs. Claus, our DJ, and all the awesome vendors who were present. A big thank you to all of our volunteers, which I'm not going to mention by name out of fear of forgetting someone, but we could not do this without you. The setup for the event was a huge task, and the placement of all the luminaries up and down Vine Street looked great as long as they stayed standing. The Light Up St. Bernard event and the Will Light for Food contest really brings the spirit of community and giving to the village that we all love. We could not ask for a better partnership with the Village PAC in making this event what it is. The Will Light for Food contest allowed for 7,741 canned good items to be collected for the St. Clement Food Pantry. The first place home were the Robins at 27 Orchard, second place were the Satyrs at 403 Jefferson, and third place were the Cranks at 417 Washington. Of course, that is kind of neat, Christmas with the Cranks. So, again, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I go over the ordinance, I'd like to thank Mr. John Ungery. Today is his last day as our treasurer. And Jonathan, the mayor, will be swearing in Kim Darenkamp as the next treasurer. She's out of town this week, but as soon as she gets back. On the agenda tonight is ordinance 36, 2024. This is just a draft because I'm going to keep trying to add, at least with the decreasing. But just to sum it up, it's almost $700,000 in decreasing appropriations. And then just some of the things to point out, the fire overtime of $50,000, they're also taking $50,000 out of their regular employees at the bottom, so that's a wash. Building permit expenses, we haven't seen this one in a while, but there's some major building going on in town, so that's the reason for that. The ARPA expenses, that's money in the fund that needs to be spent, so we did not appropriate it this year, but we're going to appropriate it, and it's going to go to more of the parks so we can finish out all the reports on the ARPA. And let's see, but everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. Are there any questions? Okay. If that's it, that concludes my report.
I will entertain a motion, oh, my bad. Entertain a motion to put ordinance 36 on the table then for next Thursday.
Mr. President,
Mr. Culbertson.
I'll make a motion, we put ordinance number 36 on the table for next Thursday's council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Culbertson, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to place ordinance 36, 2024 on the table. Any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Do we need to do anything with the budget? Oh, okay.
I don't know if Tim is, or are you going to go over the?
All right, we'll sit tight then,
Let's
and
wait.
we'll leave it at that. All right. That's it though, right, Peggy? Okay. Law Director, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. You have before you ordinance number 38, it's a draft ordinance because I just caught a couple of typos. So I'll bring a clean, next week, we'll put it on the table. I'll make sure it's a clean ordinance without the typos. The Exhibit A, this is ordinance that has to do with modifying the current Chapter 1331 to comply with what the state of Ohio wants us to have in its flood damage protection language. They actually sent us a draft that they want us to use. We've had some back and forth with them. It's currently sitting with the state. There really are just two things they need to look at, so I should have that hopefully all wrapped up before Thursday, and if not, I'll take it back, we'll close that out, and we'll have to introduce it the first of the year, but my hope is we can get it done next week. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion then to put ordinance 38 on the table for next week.
Mr. President,
Mr. Morton,
I'd like to place motion to place ordinance number 38 on the table for next week.
I'll second that.
motion by Mr. Morton, seconded by Mr. Culbertson to place ordinance 38 on the table for next week. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. At this time, you mentioned John Ungrue. I, like a fool, left my notes in my coat pocket. But at this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. This is Betty Stropman. I just heard the other day that she had passed away. I somehow missed that. Betty is the wife of former Councilman Bob Stropman, and as well as the mother of former Recreation Director Paul Stropman and retired firefighter Dave Stropman. So if we could have a moment of silence for her, please. Thank you. All right, John's not here. Service and Safety Director, Mr. Wardman.
Thank you. You should have in front of you the proposed 2025 line item budget. Just very high level, this is basically a continuation budget. It accounts for necessary personnel increases due to collective bargaining and other reasons, statutory reasons. Everything else is pretty much just carried forward, same as it was last year. There are some deductions based on going through this year's budget, and if there were line items that were significantly lower than what was budgeted, I did adjust those. So it came out a little bit higher, but not significantly higher from last year's budget. I'm going to ask that that be put on the table for approval at the next meeting as an emergency ordinance.
Any remarks from council or anything? Any questions?
Additionally, I did want to provide an update to council in executive session on collective bargaining. So I will need to have a motion for that when I guess at the end of the meeting.
Mr. President,
Mr. Culbertson.
I'll make that motion that we go into executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss collective bargaining.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Culbertson, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to go into executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss collective bargaining. Clerk, will you please call the roll on that motion?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
And Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays, motion carries. At the end of the meeting, we will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining. I'll also entertain a motion to place the 2025 budget on the table, please.
Mr. President,
Mr. Morton,
I'd like to motion to put the 2025 budget on the table for the next meeting, please.
Second.
motion by Mr. Morton, seconded by Mr. Stuchel to place the 2025 budget on the table for next week. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Anything else, Mr. Wardman?
Oh, sorry, that concludes my report.
That's right, thank you. Tax Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the Tax Department's November 2024 end-of-month receipts. Tax collection for November of 2024 was $598,469. November of 2024 is up 6.51%, or $36,563 from November of 2023. Refunds for November were $3,043. Delinquent tax collected with capital recovery was $1,093, and delinquent tax collected with the Ohio Attorney General's office was $3,917. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Morton.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met last week to review the proposed 2025 budget. We discussed in great detail the changes to the budget as it stands in 2024, along with strategies to increase tax revenue such as economic development. The committee was also happy to see a review of the village's strong financial health in the form of our well above recommended percent of funds in our reserves versus our annual costs. I want to thank our Safety Service Director Tim Wardman and Auditor Peggy Brickweg for sharing their insight at the meeting. The proposed 2025 budget represents a really exciting year ahead for St. Bernard. I also want to say thank you to those who attended any of the 12 monthly Community Connects throughout 2024. Your feedback for our village has turned into action that resulted in a better community for all of our neighbors. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. At this time, since Mr. Ungrue has come in, everybody was saying what a great job you're doing, then you weren't even here. So
Yeah, apologize for running late.
not a problem. Go ahead.
Traffic coming from north down south is a little bit harder than coming from Dartmouth Drive over here. So thank you very much. And just wanted to thank everyone again for all the support over the years that I've been given here at the city or village now, and wish everyone the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stuchel, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to remind everyone that the last day for leaf collection is December 20th. If you have leaves that still need to be collected after this date, please bag them and place them at your curb on your regular trash collection day for pickup. And then lastly, I'd like to thank the Service Department employees for their support in making the Light Up St. Bernard event a great success. Thank you. That concludes the end of my report.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. Safety, Ms. Housefeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the holidays and cold weather, I just want to make sure that everybody locks your car doors. I know there's been quite a few break-ins and stuff or stolen things over the last week or two, maybe even longer than that. And I just want to reiterate, if you're warming up your car, make sure somehow you're close by in it, or you can lock it and see what's going on, because it is happening everywhere. And I just want to give everybody a heads up. Make sure you lock them. Make sure you take your keys out of there. And if you have presents, make sure they're in your house versus in your car. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. On behalf of the Marketing Committee and the Recreation Department, I'd like to thank all the coaches, volunteers, and sponsors for making our community recreation programs possible. Our platinum sponsor is City Electrical Supply. Our gold sponsors are Coolant Control Incorporated / Kodiak, Feitner Plumbing, Next Generation Insurance Agency with Iris Wainscott, Brandy Schultmeyer with Euler Hines, Ram Clean, St. Bernard La Rose's, Wiedemann Fine Beer, Wyoming Air. Our bronze sponsors were Baxter Burial Vault, Big B Coffee, Engraved in the USA, Everlast, Friars Club, Jerry Day Auto Service, Progress Supply, St. Bernard Skyline Chili, St. Bernard Dairy Queen, St. Bernard Eagles, and Wigland. The next St. Bernard Ludlow Grove Historical Society program will be on Monday, December 16th in the main level of the municipal building at 7 p.m. This month's topic is holiday trains. And to piggyback on everybody else, thanks, John Ungree, for your service to our village. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Excuse me, at this time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council? Then at this time, we will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining, and we will be back shortly, or